Yo guys, what is going on? JPS back for another video, and today I am going to be talking about some of my shocks from visiting Germany, things that were different, for better and sometimes for worse than my experiences in the United States. I want to preface this video by saying these are simply my opinions. Whenever I say something about Germany, I am neither saying or implying that we do that thing better in the United States, and rather simply describing my experiences and thoughts on whatever thing I'm talking about. So please take whatever I say with a grain of salt, and remember, it's just an opinion. So let's get right into the video, guys. The first thing I want to tackle, the most important thing, how I got around in Germany, is public transport. And as somebody who uses a vehicle to get anywhere in the United States on a daily basis, public transport is not something I'm used to relying on to get to very important things like missing flights, or making flights for that matter. A lot of people in the United States, we rely on cars. Even if you live near cities, cars are still very prevalent. And it was really cool to see not as many cars in Germany. The trains, ironically, give you a lot more freedom than cars, which is the whole thing about cars in the United States, is you have the freedom to go wherever you want, whenever you want. But with gridlock and traffic, that is not always the case. And with the trains, I found them to be not only very intuitive and easy to learn, but also pretty much on time. There was only one instance where a train was more than 5 or 10 minutes late throughout my entire trip, which I was really impressed by, because I was in Germany for 2 weeks using the trains throughout the entire day, all day. So I was really impressed with the public transport, comprehensive transport, especially in Berlin. With the different lines and all the different ways you could get from point A to point B. I mean, whenever I was going somewhere, especially from one side of the city to the other, there was always at least one really good way to get there, and then 2 or 3 alternative ways to get there. So I was really, really blown away by Germany's public transport, Berlin's public transport, and it was good even when I wasn't in Berlin. In Munich, the public transport was good, and Hamburg, Hamburg, okay. The public transport in Hamburg was super easy to use. The public transport in Munich was super easy to use, and the ICE trains were very easy to use, and I was super impressed with how quick they were. Like, the speed at which I could get from Berlin to Munich, really impressive, also super cheap. The thing about public transport in the United States, especially in cities, you see a lot of people using public transport. I'm not talking about subways in major cities like New York City, Washington, D.C., etc. But I'm saying like the buses and things like that. You had every demographic using the buses. A lot of different people from different wages and income levels. It seemed like, again, that is a complete judgment of mine, but based off the people I talked to who were also on trains, it wasn't just low-income residents who were using them. Whereas in the United States, sometimes you have that problem. People can't afford a car, so the bus is the next best thing, and it's terrible. Our public transport systems are really not well put together in general, in comparison to what I experienced in Berlin. It really blew away what we have. Certain cities are definitely have, solid infrastructure in place, but those are outliers in certain cities. I'd say in general, Berlin public transport blew away anything that I had ever used in the United States. So another thing I want to get into, which is not really related to public transport, but it's something that you saw right when I got off the train, right when I got off the plane and entered Germany, was the cigarette smoking. So I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm not here to say, I don't need to say that either. The science proves it. But I was really blown away by the cigarette usage in Germany. And I actually asked a lot of Germans about this because I was so curious as to, Germany seemed to be so progressive in certain ways, yet almost everyone smokes cigarettes. And almost everyone, of course, that's not an accurate figure, but 1 in 4 Germans is a daily cigarette smoker. And I don't even need the facts. I can go out on the street and see, everyone's lighting up cigs. When you're sitting outside, everyone has their pack of cigs on the table. And I really was curious about this, so I asked Germans about this. I was like, well, why does everyone smoke cigarettes? Like, what's that all about? Because I'm not saying people don't smoke cigarettes in the United States, but in the particular bubble I am, kids my age, I don't know a single person that smokes cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes. I have no friends who smoke cigarettes. It's just not a popular thing to do. No one does it. So there's no reason to do it, because you're seen as like an out. If I were to light up a cigarette in front of some friends, they'd be like, what are you doing? So there was just a really big culture shock to see everyone smoking a cigarette out on the street. Again, I'm not saying that this is for better or for worse, or that we're any better because we because I don't smoke cigarettes or whatever. I just found it so shocking that so many people did. So I asked Germans about it, and they said, yeah, it's just one of those things. He said, cigarettes are a way of networking. You have to smoke cigarettes if you want to talk to people and get jobs and socialize with people. And like he said, like everyone does it. So, it's just one of those things. And I was like, oh, what about all the, because they have these like images on the boxes. They look so stupid. It's like someone's lungs bleeding or someone's heart exploding or like, I don't know, a baby's face crying. I don't know. It's just really supposed to be disturbing images, but ended up looking very funny and comical. And that's exactly what he said. He said, Germans don't even blink an eye at that, and that it's just funny and it doesn't really scare anyone away from smoking cigarettes. So that was something that was definitely a big culture shock for not only me, but also my friend Ryan, who I spent a bit of time in Berlin with. Another thing I wanted to bring up was the use of cash. This is something that was very, very frustrating for me throughout the trip, and something I still can't wrap my head around is, in 2023, why do restaurants not have the option to pay electronically? Why do you have to carry cash around everywhere? To me, that was very frustrating. And again, I'm not saying we're any better with our forms of payments, but in the United States, I'm used to being able to, I don't even have to bring my credit cards out with me. I have a mobile wallet on my phone, and I'm able to pay without touching the payment terminal at whatever merchant I'm buying from. So that was very different, was having to carry around cash and change a tangible form of currency rather than just paying electronically, which was weird because I felt like in Germany that's what would be the main thing, was electronic payments, because a lot of other things were electronic, like your train tickets, navigation. Restaurants and bars we sat at had QR codes for their menus. So you're very, moving towards a phone only society in certain ways, but then cash is, like literally restaurants would not, I would ask, is it cash only, which sounded like a really stupid and rhetorical question towards the end of the trip, because of course it is cash only. So that was something I had to get used to. To me, I honestly was a bit frustrated by that. I feel like every place you should be able to pay electronically in 2023. That's my personal opinion. All right, another thing, and this was mentioned a lot in the vlogs, is alcohol. Alcohol in Germany is treated way differently than back home. In the United States, we are not legally allowed to drink until we are 21, which is one of the most backwards, ridiculous, and stupid laws that has ever been made in the history of humankind, and that's coming from a 20-year-old, of course. So being able to legally drink at 18, and not only legally drink, but also being able to legally drink in public, was something that was very new and exciting. For me, it was just a really big deal, and I know you guys are like, oh, he's making such a big deal of being able to drink a beer on the sidewalk, and of course, there were many comments about us day drinking and being alcoholics, which I don't need to assure you. I haven't had a drink in a pretty long time because the trip's been over for a while now, and it's just like, no, I was having a good time on vacation, and I really did enjoy that, the laid-back view towards alcohol, because it's really not that big of a deal, as long as it never becomes a problem, which is easier said than done for some people, which is unfortunate. But I also really liked how in Germany people drank within their limits. I didn't see too many people who were really pissed or messed up. Like, no one was super drunk, especially when we went out at nightclubs. Like, I don't think you would get in. The bouncers would see you're too messed up and they wouldn't let you in. It's not really about getting drunk, but rather just enjoying the drink and drinking within your own limits, which I was a big fan of, and I ended up doing that. I drank within my limits for most of the trip. And that ties directly into my next thing, which is going to be nightlife. German nightlife was fantastic. The variety of nightlife that was available, you had anywhere from pubs to sex clubs, which is pretty versatile. Like, here in the United States, that's definitely not a thing, and I think this ties in with other things in Germany, like how you view yourself and how open people are with like their identity and who they want to be. In Germany, I felt super freed. It felt like shackles had been lifted off of me. I wasn't worried about how people were perceiving me in public. We walked onto a subway on the way to a nightclub one night, and it was a couple. One of them was dressed as Batman, and the lady was dressed up as Batwoman, and he had a leash on her, and he was just sitting on the train. And Ryan and I didn't blink an eye, because that's what the normal thing to do was. And this is a really good example of how I view that Germany runs their society, is like leading by example. If everyone is doing this, you don't have to, like, no one has to verbally read you the rules or the normalcies of society. You just have to look around and behave like everyone else. And it turns out to be a very civil and obedient and functioning society. But at the same time, not to that point where it's like you still have so much freedom. You can do whatever you want, really, as long as you're not hurting others or messing around with others. You can do whatever you want, which was so amazing. Like, to see that and not even think about it. When, let me tell you, if we had seen Batman and Catwoman dressed up back home and it was on the metro or something, I can tell you right now they would have gotten ridiculed verbally. They would have possibly been, there's a good chance they would have been physically assaulted. There's just things like that we just don't see. We don't have that back home. So that was like, it was shocking. It was mind-boggling to see that. And that was just a normal night on the subway. And they were probably on the way to Kit Kat Club or whatever. I personally didn't go to Kit Kat Club, but I met some people along the trip who did, and they told me stories about Kit Kat Club, and like it's just so crazy. Like, the fact that something like that exists, personally, I think that's really cool. The nightlife I did experience was fantastic. The sound systems were great. Music was a bit different than what we're used to, so there was a lot of electronic music, and I had never previously listened to it, but I honestly really enjoyed it. I could argue that the night out I had in Berlin, this one night out I had in Berlin where we went to this rave, was the best night out I've ever had. That there's certainly a prominent argument for that because of how much fun I had. And you know, when you walk out of the nightclub and the sun is rising, you know it was a good night. That was the nightlife in Berlin, blew anything that I had previously experienced away, for sure. And that can lead into beer and alcohol as well. I didn't really talk about this, but the beer in Germany was amazing. Even the cheap beer was better than anything I drank before in the United States. You guys just have better beer. I will argue with someone over that. Like, I don't even want to try Bud Light after that. So another thing that took a bit of time to get used to was the direct nature of Germans. And this is not only the way in which Germans talk to one another, and me while I was there, of course, but also the way they carry themselves in public with things like staring. The staring, guys. We need to talk about that. So it was so weird for me, walking down the street. Let me describe to you what happens in the United States. So this has happened to me before. United States, walking down the street, one of the things you're taught from a very young age is to never stare at people, because in the United States, people take that personally. So one time I was walking down the street and I was just looking at this guy, just staring at him, didn't think much of it. He looked at me back, gave me a bit of a glare, and was like, what's up? Like, what the are you looking at? Like, he said that to me and then tensed up as if he was getting ready to punch me. And I was like, my bad. That's exactly how it goes in the United States. For the most part, in cities, if you're staring someone down, you are either initiating some type of conversation, some type of interaction, or some type of altercation, depending on who you are staring at. If you are staring at a hothead, they will open fire on you in certain instances. I mean, like, there's videos, you can look it up. There's prank videos on YouTube of someone going up and staring at people because people take staring so personally back home. And of course, that's ingrained in me. So when I come over to Germany and I'm walking down the street and people are staring at me for 2-3 seconds at a time, looking me up and down, I'm like, whoa. Do we have a problem? Because it's just ingrained in me. I don't really have a choice with that. Had to get used to it, of course. But it was a bit frustrating at times. Like, do I look differently? Is something wrong with my hair? Like, why? Because back home, usually in the United States, if someone's staring at you, it's because you're looking different. Something's wrong with you or something like that. That's the only reason someone will stare at you. That's why people have a problem with staring, because it's like, I'm like, what's up? So that was something I really had to get used to, and it was very difficult at the start. And I know you guys are like, what? Like, it's just a stare. It's, we look at people in public. I get it, but it's not something I was used to at all. So another thing I wanted to talk about would be, and this is still, it's more of a facet of the direct nature of Germans, not just the staring, but also the way Germans talk. It's very direct. Like, I don't really know how to describe. It's something you just have to experience for yourself. But the way Germans talk to one another and to you is so, like, serious and direct. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on, is how serious Germans are, but that they're not. It's like, you're so serious and, like, you know, when they're walking, it's like, well, why did I say when you guys are walking, it's like, you got to go somewhere. Like, where you're going is important. But then at the same time, it's like cracking bottles in the park at like 4 p.m. and it's just like drinking, enjoying life, having a good time, but then also so serious. It was very difficult to break those two. I don't know what you would describe, those two like characters apart that are part of almost every German, I would say. It's like the serious and the not so serious. And I've heard a lot of people complain about that as well. This isn't something I would say, but some people think that Germans take life too seriously. But I don't really know if I see that. I know they can be serious at times, and when you're walking around in public, everyone has kind of a straight face. Sometimes it's like curving into a frown, it feels like, and people are very serious and like, but then they're not. And it's just like, what is that? It's just so different, you know? But I really did love, like, every German I met, I absolutely loved the interaction. They're super friendly, but it's like, at first you think they're not going to be friendly because it's, you know, it's a German. They're so serious with how they present themselves, at least compared to what I'm used to. But then you get to talking and they're like actually interested in the United States. So you're comparing things with them about that. And then, you know, they're telling you about where they're from in Germany. And there's a lot of people I met in Berlin as well. So that was awesome. Like, there was not a single German person I met I could say that I didn't like. Literally, even in Munich as well. Like, it didn't matter where I was. It was throughout the entire country. Everyone was super friendly, super willing to help. Not only help me out because I had to ask questions sometimes when I was lost or needed to see what time I should be here, things like that. You know, everyone was always willing to help and super happy about it. And they heard me talk and they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" And just boom, starts a conversation. So really loved interacting with Germans throughout the trip. I honestly, like, I really mean that. Like, one of my favorite group of people to interact with, really. You really have to get out there and just meet people. That's the best way to do it, I think. I also like the whole bottle thing, you know, with having like, you're kind of employing people who otherwise may not have a job, or, you know, some people use it as a side hustle to get some extra cash, which I thought was great. It's a kind of redistribution of wealth, because for people who don't need the money returned for using the bottles, you can, you know, put them next to the trash can and give it to someone else. I thought that was a beautiful system, and I'm honestly hoping we employ something similar in the United States. Like, that's fantastic. But yeah, guys, I think that's going to wrap up the video. I'm sure I missed a lot of things, so we can always do a part 2. And there's going to be a lot of videos coming out where I'm talking about my experiences in Germany and applying them to this channel. I'm hoping to do some more reactions because there's a lot we missed. And remember, guys, this is one trip. I'm sure we will be back in Germany sometime very soon. I keep saying we because I'm bringing you guys along with me. I hope you guys enjoyed the vlogs. I enjoyed viewing them as much as I enjoyed making them. It was really a pleasure to be in Germany, and I was welcomed with very open arms. So thank you. Thank every single one of you for watching the videos and being yourself. So thank you all. Really appreciate it. With that being said, guys, I will catch you all in the next one. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.